One, two, description of an algorithm. In this video, we will look at the algorithm, but from different angle. Yeah. So we have many different ways to understand algorithm. Yeah. All right. This time, so let's look at the, how do we use an algorithm to solve a computing problem? Okay. All right. So our goal, find a solution for a computing problem. Okay. Yeah. So in order to do that, so we need, what do we need for an algorithm? The details here. So we need a precisely defined procedure to get an answer. Remember that step-by-step procedure, precisely, all the important details must be addressed. Okay, yeah. Here, look at this step-by-step implementation details. So that's, if we use the terminology we used from the previous video, this is the execution part, right? You need to provide the execution details. Okay, yeah. All right, so here you can see, typically, so we use diagram, and a flow chart to help us organize our problem-solving ideas. Put as much details, put appropriate details. So I want to see it this way, because some of the details we may not like to put it, right? Yeah. Some of the details we want to skip it at this point. Yeah. So we put appropriate, just the right details. Yeah. All right. So this is the, organize our thinking stage, well organized. Yeah. So then each step can be represented in code. So eventually we need to write code, computer code in certain programming language to make it happen, to make all the steps happen. Yeah. Then it results in a computer program. All right, so something like this. Yeah. Computer program. We use IDE to develop, testing, debugging, and modify the code, many rounds. Finally, we get a program that can solve given computing problem. Yeah. All right. Next, what is an algorithm? So this time, we look at from the important elements, that point of view. For elements, yeah, our discussion so far, so we look at the abstract part, abstract, high-level understanding. This time, we want to look at important elements we need for an algorithm. Yeah. First, a sequence of instructions. So when you write a code, you need to provide a sequence of instructions. And what's the requirement for sequence of instructions? Yeah, there is one, unambiguous. It must be very clear, no confusion. Okay, everybody can, so the programmers in your team can understand that easily. That's not easy to do. Yeah. But you try your best to make your code as clear as possible. Yeah. Then input element. So what do we need? What requirement for the input element? It must be legitimate. Because the users, your customers, yeah, so you imagine you solve this computing problem for your customers. Okay, so your customers the input data should satisfy some business requirements. So your program, at the beginning, you need to make sure the input is legitimate. Okay, so that requirement, yeah, basic requirement. For the output, what's the requirement for the output? Yeah, output, there is some business format you need to follow. Okay, based on your customers' business needs, you need to provide the output following certain business format. Okay, yeah. Then, the last element I want to talk about in this video, what's that? Then the performance measure. So this performance measure, execution time. Okay, yeah. So here, this is another important consideration. Performance measure. Yeah, because this is extremely important in the algorithm environment. Later, we will spend a lot of time to discuss the performance measure. And here you can see the requirement here, finite amount. Finite amount. That's the minimum requirement, right? It cannot be infinite amount, right? Infinite amount for the execution time useless. Your program never stops. Never stops. So nobody can use it. Okay? So the minimum requirement is finite amount. But definitely it's not enough, right? Finite enough. 100 years. Do you think 100 years, it's a finite time, finite amount, execution time, right? But can you imagine any customer, they will be satisfied with the, 100 years to get a result, right? Yeah, yeah. So another requirement here, yeah. So here, so you can see, I put a word, acceptable to users. It must be acceptable to your users. If your users or your customers are not happy, then you won't get the money. You cannot get the money. You do not deliver the job, right? Yeah. So you have to get execution time within the expectation of your customers. So acceptable to your users. That requirement. Okay. All right. So here we look at from another angle, important elements, points for an algorithm. All right. So that's our video number 2, 8.2, and we complete our part A of module 1. So module 1, because we spend more than half of the time explaining syllabus. So the remaining less than one half, so we have this 2 short videos. Yeah. Then starting tomorrow, I will have 4 videos completely for the algorithm content. All right, so let's stop here. Yeah.